JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, August 11th, 325. This Friday afternoon. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P. Slightly in the red here. Another one of those tight trading ranges, down about a tenth of a percent. Uh, Markets were in the green. Ramped to highs at the noon hour, almost up to 639 on the SPY. Now we're back at that 636 handle. No big news, no crazy catalysts. You had a press conference from Trump talking about what's going on in DC, and of course, what always happens with those press conferences, they turn into a um, just a commentary after the press conference about all the other topics that are going on. And I'm sure that the press conference would still be going if he didn't have somewhere else to go or whatever. But nothing really updated on there. And then just recently, you had reports out that the U.S. is going to extend the truce between the U.S. and China in regards to the tariff situation another 90 days. So that takes that headwind away for into tomorrow. And that's that. And then, of course, the big data point tomorrow is CPI, right? And everything you read, everything I read today, yesterday, over the weekend, it's all about the inflation. It's going to show up. It is. Uh, Goldman Sachs says somewhere says U.S. consumers will bear brunt of Trump tariffs, says Goldman Sachs economist. Same Goldman Sachs economist who said there was a 45% chance we were in a recession back on April 7th, right? And then I think they upped it to like 65%. Hey, not saying right or wrong. Everybody gets things. Some get them right, some get them right a lot, some get them wrong, some get them wrong a lot. I mean, Goldman Sachs gets a lot right too. So it's just I take some of this with a grain of salt. But then they broke it down in the chart, and this came out over the weekend. Right now, as of June, 64% of the tariffs are being eaten by businesses, U.S. businesses. Only 14% from foreign exporters. So the people who bring the product, who send the product into the U.S., who technically don't have to pay extra costs, right? Because their item's $100, they send it to whoever orders from the U.S. and it's still $100. But then once the person who orders it, they're the one who pays the tariff. So if it's from China, it's 25%. So that item is now $125. And then they say 22% of the tariff cost has been eaten by U.S. consumers. Uh, I mean, car prices have been down. CPI. Well, I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow. It'll either confirm that hey, we're on a trend of hey that things are going to accelerate, or hey that the status quo might be in a way. Right? There's going to be a little bit uptick inflation, and things will get figured out. I hope that is the scenario as opposed to like some crazy surprise or crazy unexpected inflation CPI data that's way above expectations, and then it's certainly going to open the stage for a pullback into the low 620s at minimum, in my opinion. Hope that's not the scenario that plays out. I put on a watch list this morning. 633 is kind of my line in the sand where I'll look to get some hedge puts. But outside of that, I'll just continue to nibble, be selective in positions, not loading the boat on the call side, but certainly I'm more biased to further upside than downside at this moment. But all things can change, right? I'm open to a possibility that hey, this could be it for now, and when we pull back and we go down, test that 619 that we hit on the jobs report 2 weeks ago, and figure things out from there. I don't think that's gonna be a scenario, but you never know, right? So that's kind of that. Also of note today, you look at the VIX, and I think more of it's a function two reasons, right? The VIX is higher because it's at 15 or was it 15? So it was at multi-month lows. So it's up 5% today, and that's what even when the market was green. And then the other is probably more so because of tomorrow's data, which could be a possible binary event. And if you take a look at the S&P right now, I didn't even pull it up before, but the daily 0 day to expiration options tomorrow is $4.07 on the SPY. So divide that in, was that 0.8% implied move? I'd have to do the math, right? So I think that's 0.8% implied move for tomorrow, just for the SPY at the open. So that's pretty big, large implied move without it being like a Fed event or something like that. So pretty remarkable stuff. So I think that's more of the function of why the the VIX is higher. All right. So now that's kind of overall market. Hopefully, CPI comes in line, which is, and when I say in line expectations, going to come in a tad hotter than expectation, or at least that's the estimates. No big surprises, and then markets can find some footing. If not, now hotter inflation tomorrow, and now it's going to bring everything into question. Also, it's going to Jackson Hole with Powell. What's he going to do? Is it going to be an emergency Fed meeting? That chatter will come up because not only are we going to have to get the data out of the way for this month, but start of September, the Fed meeting is not till mid-September. So there's going to be another round of data that we have to get through until that Fed meeting. So lots That's why it's even more important with this data tomorrow. And now then we get PPI data on Thursday, which if CPI comes in line, then I don't even know how much that's going to matter. But all right, so that's overall market. So now just individual names here. So CGC, thank you again, Seb, for pointing that out on Friday. It's one of the OG names I've traded over the years. And back in 2024, I went on Monster One, that and ACB. I made a couple thousand% on some of the calls, and then it's kind of come back down to earth. And some of it was they were at some point going to reclassify marijuana into a different um, drug. I forget what they call it. Of course, every time I think about it, I lose exactly what it's called, even though it's right on the tip of my tongue. But uh, anyway, so over the weekend there was more commentary. The Wall Street Journal reported that Trump was possibly looking into declass. What's it declass? Why can't I get this? this why can't I get this word out? Man, reclassify, right? So and then today at the press conference, right? So of course he's supposed to be talking about what's going on in Washington D.C. And then the reporters, what do? They ask him about marijuana, and he says they're looking into it. So he says it could be an update in a couple of weeks, and then you saw some of these marijuana, the pot names, which are already gapping higher and running today, find some footing, bounce around, and then just took off. By noontime, CGC was up at $1.70. Used the move to close some October strikes out for 100%. I was actually looking at January, and the January $3 calls are only 20 cents, right? So do I think CGC, if it goes on a run, do I think it gets over $3 before the end of the year? Certainly, it could probably happen before the end of August. So once these catch fire and like the regulatory environment starts to shift, and then as there's so many different things that go on because the legalization stuff, the reclassifying, it takes all these. There's banks and stuff that can't do business with you. There's a whole. I don't want to go to a whole big rant, but they can't do business because marijuana is not classified in the right drug category, right? So once that happens, it just creates margin opportunities, revenue opportunities. It just would probably take uh, I don't know, the damp rug, the damp towel off the market. So thankfully locks them in for 100%. I'll continue to ride those. And if it does some continuation, I almost pulled the trigger on the Januaries, but I'm like, let me just wait and see. Maybe 180. If it gets over 180, I'll look to get some of the January strikes. But if it starts to run, you'll be looking back at the January strikes at 20 cents or whatever they are right now, to January $3 calls, and those will be $2, $3, $4, $5. So that's kind of the thought process there. All right, so that's CGC. Then United Healthcare, right? So it was gapping overnight, gapped in the morning, and boom, off to the races. By 10:30, it was at 258. And I'm like, this is great. Lock some of the calls in to cover some costs. And then it's been kind of like in meltdown mode ever since. It's still in the green here. My calls just went red, or the rest of them. I'm just going to continue to hold them because I think that it's going to bounce. And you look at a chart, despite today's pull, if you look at the daily, it still looks nice. It looks setting up nice on a daily basis. So not only that, 50-day moving average right up there to 290. I mean, it's not. I don't think it'll get to 290 this week, pending any crazy catalysts, whether it be some insider buy or some fund or activist investor or upgrade. But I do think it trades into the 260s midweek, hopefully, and then if not higher. So I'll continue to hold those strikes. Also, I forgot to mention on the S&P, the SPY. This will be the 6th day in a row we have higher highs and higher lows. Actually, I got to check what Friday's highs were. Yeah, so impressive uptrend, right? That's what you want to see in an uptrend: higher highs, higher lows. All right, so that's healthcare. Now Lemonade, right? So Lemonade, I had the 55 strikes going into this week. At the end of last week, after locking those 50 strikes in for 450, 400, 500%. And then it found pressure after the root earnings and all the way down to 47. I locked those 55 strikes in flat. I think they were 90 cents. And then it bounced on Friday. I was looking, I'm like, oh, my 55s are still kind of flat. And then boom, it starts to rally again today. And I was looking, I'm like, do I want to get to 55? Well, I don't want to do wash sales. So I want to try and get a different strike. And ironically enough, the 55s are still 90 cents. So I'm like, if I want to take advantage of some upside, I'll go further out. The stock's at $52, much higher than when I got the strikes, the 55s. And then if we get continuation and squeeze tomorrow, 53.85 is that November high. If we break through that, I think it's off to the races. And it won't matter if I have the 55s or the 60s. There'll be serious multi-baggers, and there'll be bigger multi-baggers on the further out of money strike. So not only that, when you look at Lemonade, every time it runs, the premiums come into the further out of money calls really quick. So if it gets to 55 bucks tomorrow, the 60 call is going to be a couple 100% right off the bat. So that's the thought process there. Flip side comes under pressure, similar to what happened last week. Those 60 calls will lose premium very quick, and they'll probably be bidless if it breaks back under 50 bucks. But I like the risk reward. So that's how I trade Eliminate. I'll continue to look for opportunities on that one. And this is a longer dated chart. Uh, and then I got the Lulu strikes today. And, I hate to time the top perfectly, but it looks like I timed the top perfectly. I waiting for this one, similar to UNH. At some point, it's going to break out. You had a analyst kind of reiterating the outperform rating of this morning. I thought, hey, maybe this is the kick in the butt it needs. Traded to lows on Friday. I'm like, oh, it's not going to new lows today. And sure enough, it's right at lows here. At some point, it's going to squeeze. And that's the good thing. So if it gets a kick in the butt tomorrow with another upgrade or something to that effect, I mean, 5, 6, 7%, and my call's gonna be up, a couple 100%. So I'll continue to hold those. Not much to update here on Serve. Serve was looking great, almost 11 bucks for most of the morning, and then boom, just melting today into the afternoon. I'll continue to hold those strikes. Joby looked great for most of the morning, still up 2% here. Like I keep mentioning, it's one of those names. I don't know if I'm even going to put it on the watch list to talk about too much unless something changes. I'll continue to hold those October strikes. TripAdvisor was looking great this morning, flat here today. Last but not least, here is Reddit, right? So Reddit, similar to Lemonade, I had those 240 strikes last week, and then I closed them out for a little loss when it started to break down. And I think Reddit was like 210, right, when I got those strikes, and I think the 240 strikes I got were like 150. And then I sold them for like 130 or 125, somewhere in there. And then you look right now, and those 240 strikes are still in the red compared to where I got them, 132 by 142. Uh, so it's tough because there's a lot of premium. $13.74 implied move. So what, 6-7% on Reddit just for this week? There's no catalyst, right? There's no earnings. So because of that, if it doesn't move fast enough, the premiums just evaporate. So I was looking at the 250s earlier. Those were 80 cents when it was 225. Those are down to 50 cents now. I'll continue to look for opportunities to trade Reddit. I think once it breaks all-time highs, I think it's 230 and change. It'll be blue skies. And when I say blue skies, 240, 250, 260 really quick. I sound like a broken record because back in April, I was saying that on Reddit. I think once it breaks 120, it's going to be 140, 150, 160, and here it is at 220, right? So anyway, that's about it. I'm trying to think of some of these other names. IIPR, which is a REIT in the cannabis space. That's a name I always used to, I've traded on and off for some nice gains. That's come way down. Historical low sitting here at 49 bucks. Another name that could really take off if, this cannabis momentum just continues, right? Because I think it'll bring the whole sector can get on fire. That's happened in the past. I think in the midst of that. So another name I'm watching. And then gold, right? So it's funny they're mentioning the tariffs, and I mean, I guess the tariff situation sparked gold a little bit, but people worried is going to be a cost associated with gold. I don't even know how that works, but they cleared that up. It's exempt from tariffs. I mean, it was down this morning even before that report. Hit all-time highs last week, so I always look at gold similar to Visa and MasterCard with those bear goggles on. Not sure I'll be trading it just yet, but at some point. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.